The Cold Omaha Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to Procedurally Generated. I'm Henry Bell, and joining me today are Tom Schreier and Brandon Bowling. There's a bunch of news this week, and we played quite a few games as well. We're going to be covering how you can get the original Starcraft for free, this week's Humble Bundles, how you can unlock 20 characters in Heroes of the Storm for free, Nintendo's business plans for this year, and a whole lot more. But first, I want to get things started with all the games we've been playing. Tom, Brandon, how's it going?
Going pretty good. How are you doing?
Good.
Can't complain.
I'm drowning over here. I don't know about you guys. I've been just playing all kinds of stuff, old and new, this last couple weeks. With the release of quite a few titles at the beginning of the year this year, I'm doing a little bit of catch-up, but also, there's some newer stuff that I've finally got my hands on. You guys been playing anything fun, Tom?
I've been slacking. I'm glad you're picking up the slack for us, because I've been, as you guys know, been diving into Tales of Borderlands, played some Overwatch, Brawl, and Hearthstone, but not much outside of that.
For sure. Well, we'll come back to that, because I actually played 2 of those games this week. But I'll get things started here, because I think I actually played the majority. One thing I wanted to talk about was PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I talked about this very briefly, in some detail last week, but now I've gotten quite a bit more time with the game. I've gotten the opportunity to play some co-op play, or some duos as they call it, and I have some more opinions and thoughts on the game, so I wanted to present them to you guys here. First up, for those who may have missed last week's episode, the game is basically the newest version of the DayZ Battle Royale style survival free-for-all matches. It's a first-person shooter where you get dropped on an island with 100 people, and last man standing wins. You all start out with nothing, and you have to run around and pick up weapons and armor and try and survive. It's a whole lot of fun. However, it is in early access still, and is $30 for those who are interested. Personally, I paid full price for it, and I don't regret it, but I know that kind of game is not for everyone, so definitely something to be aware of. That aside, I got an opportunity to play, like I said, some of the duo queue, which is really fun to me. So there's 3 game modes, or not game modes, but there's 3 kind of game types, I guess, in this. They're all this 100-person battle royale, however, they are segregated into different team sizes. So, the mode that I mostly have been playing is the solo queue, where it's 100 people, every man for themselves. But there's also 2 other modes. There's the duo mode, which is what I was playing with my brother this week, which is 50 teams of 2 people. And then there's also the squad mode, which I believe is 25 teams of 4. And go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, which one's better? It just sounds like 50 teams of 2 people. It sounds ridiculous.
Well, I mean, it's all the same number of people.
Yeah, that's true. I just kind of wonder if there's... I mean, I suppose it's kind of every man for yourself, but it does feel like at least there's significant factions in the 4 and 25. But I have never played a game like this before.
I wouldn't say significant factions. I mean, 25 teams of 4 people, to be clear, not 4 teams of 25 people. So,
oh yeah.
So it's really only 4 guys in a group, but they're against 25 other groups of 4. Personally, I'm kind of torn. I really like duo mode quite a bit. It's really fun, especially with the mic chat when it's working. It's super fun to be able to do call outs and shout across rooftops at each other and warn about incoming dudes. And it's also fun to coordinate and kind of have the extra set of hands, because you can have one person gather up some gear for both of you while the other goes and finds a vehicle, since you have to keep moving in this game. That said, I don't know if it's because there are better players in duo, if I just need to practice some more at coordinating with my brother, or if the game itself is just easier solo play, but I do much, much, much better solo than I do in groups. I've come in 3rd place a couple times now in solo. I think the highest I've gotten is 8th place or 7th place in duo. which is fine, I guess, but it's kind of the whole crux of the game is getting to that very end where you're finally having that death match and everyone's not quite so spread out. But yeah, I've been really, really enjoying my time with it. I know neither of you guys are super into this particular genre, but I think this is a pretty good like gateway into it for people who are maybe a little hesitant. I would recommend, if you're still iffy about it, even at a $30 price tag, I'd say wait for it to go on sale, and if you can see it for $20, pick it up, because it's worth $20. It definitely is. I mean, to be clear, I'm saying like it's an early access title, like it's only been out for like 3 weeks. That said, or 4 weeks, I guess, as of today, I think. But that said, they've released an update every 7 days that are making major improvements. And on top of that, God, I'm going to look at my time played right now. It's going to be embarrassing. I mean, I've played
22 or 23 hours.
Probably. Let's see here. I want PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, 22 hours. Nice, Brandon.
So that is pretty funny. Is this a game where you have to kind of put up with like chaos and random events because you just have so many people on the board?
I mean, can you be more specific? Because I mean, yes, sort of. Like there are artillery strikes that happen, but like you can see where on the map they're going to land, and there's like a 2-minute delay before they start going off, and you can still go in a building to avoid them. So I guess it kind of depends. I mean, it's not like but, I mean, absolutely, I could walk into a building that I'm just trying to loot gear in and have a dude be, like, crouching in the bathroom with a shotgun and kill me. I guess I don't know what you mean by chaos.
No, I mean, that's fair. I mean, I would say that, like, every game kind of has that element.
Exactly. Like, multiplayer is chaotic by nature.
I think he's thinking something more along the lines of, like, PlanetSide, where it's just straight up outright war.
No, it's not like that at all. It's actually...
Yeah.
I'd say it's characterized, actually, by very long, tense breaks in the action, actually. You spend much more time not fighting than you do fighting. Every single match will have some point where you can't see anyone anywhere, and you could even shoot your gun off in the air, and people are not going to come to you right away. I mean, I've gone 20-plus minutes without seeing a single other player.
Okay, so that actually is really interesting and answers my question well, because my thought process was like, and it's only recently that I've played Overwatch with at least 4 people that I know, like on the team, and like what I found is a lot of ours is actually sticking to structure, even if it seems like in that moment it doesn't make sense. Like why couldn't like a faster player kind of sneak through a corridor and see where the other team is?
Sure.
But it seems like in this sense, like you're not going to have the structure because even in a 4,
You actually kind of do. I mean, even just me and my brother could coordinate quite a few things, just like, bunny hop advancement with one of us covering the other's back as we slowly moved forward, him distracting a player by shooting up at them on the roof while I sneak around to the back door and then come up behind them, like, through the building. Like, there is definitely potential for advanced play and strategy. Actually, I'd say a game like this gives you more potential for that because it's not such a clusterfuck. Like Hearthstone, Overwatch, there's just, like, constantly characters on screen, and, like, you're, like, shooting through your allies because the tanks are so huge and all this. And, like, whereas in this game, like, it's an 8x8 kilometer map. Like, it's huge. So you really, really are spread out, and you're not seeing people that often. So you absolutely have opportunity. It's very slow paced. You have opportunities to enact strategy and stuff like that because it's not like, oh God, we got to get back to capture the point. It's like you need to strategically be careful and think it out because when you die, you leave the game and you have to start a new game.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think it sounds like in that case too, you come away pretty confident that the best players win. On average, right? The average game.
Yes and no. A lot of it has to do with spawn points, what items you get. I mean, yes, definitely I feel like skill plays a big part, but I'm no great shakes at first-person shooters, and I do very well in solo play, so to the point where I've had people be, like, surprised at it, and I'm like, I don't know. I think that it's an interesting question. I guess I'm not really sure.
Huh.
It's a combination of skill. Like, you do have to be, because I've watched a lot of videos on it. It seems like it's a combination of course, skill and an understanding of game mechanics, like sound,
right,
and then map understanding as well. But there's also like your role as well, because you don't start the game off with weapons or really any gear. You have to collect that. It's
just your fists, and on top of that, like I could search buildings the entire game without running into a single person, but if one guy has an 8x scope and I don't, and I'm out on a hillside, I could be a better player, but he's going to just dome me without me even seeing him. So, like, I mean, it's as much as any game can be balanced, but then there's also the added-in thing, too. It has to do with strategy and planning. It's not necessarily the best players that win. It's the people who play the game the best and also have, decent luck at least.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I would assume also understanding the boards is incredibly important. Like, what's the learning... No?
Yes and no. There aren't boards. You're thinking about this wrong. It's an 8x8 kilometer island. Like, it's the size of most open-world video games. It's huge.
Oh, damn.
It's massive.
Yeah,
the game opens with a plane with 100 people on it doing a flyover over the island, and you all parachute out whenever you want, wherever you want. Like, it's a massive map. You really should, look up some videos on it, because I can't really do it complete justice just describing it. It's a lot like a lot of these games, though, like DayZ, H1Z1, The Culling,
Arma.
Yeah, although... Yeah, point being, it's a very large map. It's semi-realistic compared to most shooters. Like, if you're bleeding, you can use bandages, but if you're not bleeding anymore, bandages won't heal you. That kind of thing. You die very quickly. Even with good armor, you can get one shot pretty fast if you get shot in the face. But the gun, I will say, the guns feel quite balanced. I really like the attachment system a lot. I think there is huge potential for strategic and fun play, much more so than in a game like, say, The Division, where I was really hoping I would have that. And it actually is not terrible looking. On my system, which I have 16 gigs of RAM and a 980, I'm running it on, I think, high settings for everything except for foliage, because it affects your visibility when grass loads in and people can hide in it. Everything else, though, is set to high or ultra, and I get 60 frames fairly consistently. I do get some server lag, but I think that's to be expected with a game that's sold, an insane number of copies in the last month. I think, a week and a half into their sales, after release, they had already made, $16 million. So,
wow.
It's a very popular game.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and that offers good perspective. So do you feel like it comes down to just being principled with how you play, or do you think that understanding kind of the more you play it and the more you understand, maybe I should call it a map instead of a board, the more you understand that, the better you're going to be at it.
I mean, yes,
or maybe it's a combination.
Yes and no. You need to learn the internal logic of the world. You need to know that if you go to a military base, there's going to be a higher chance for guns to be there, but more people are going to go there. You need to know that if you drop in a non-urban area, you're more likely to find a car because they're trying to help you get to an urban area. But most of your movement and stuff is controlled by the ever-closing circle that will kill you if you're outside of it. You take damage over time when you're not within the current circle. And the circle starts out the size of the entire map, and then as every 2.5 minutes, I think, every 2.5 to 5 minutes, it slowly creeps down and closes in on you, which is part of why vehicles and stuff are in the game, is because also why I say it's not always the best player wins. You could get a really bad spawn, not find any vehicles, and just die because you get zoned out and you can't get to the main zone fast enough.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a really fun game. Again, it's not for everyone, but I've found it incredibly addicting, and you guys know I don't really like competitive multiplayer. Part of why I like it is it doesn't feel cheap to me. While I do get occasionally killed on a hillside, what I usually think is not, oh, god damn it, I didn't even get to see where that came from. What I usually think is, man, I probably shouldn't have been in a dead sprint on the side of a hill with no cover whatsoever, huh?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so it feels very fair to me for the most part, and I've had a lot of fun playing it.
Nice.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Highly recommend. But yeah, that is PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Tom, tell us about some game you played this week.
Yeah, so I'm addicted. It might be an addiction to Tales of the Borderlands. I understand this is a game that didn't come out super, super recently. However, if you haven't played it yet, it is free right now, or you can play the first one free. I really like the character development. It has a lot of the elements of games like Mass Effect and stuff where I don't know how much there's choice and consequence. I'm going to be really interested how much
more than most games.
Yeah, and I know where some pivotal points are, I just kind of wonder what my little actions, where they'll be like, so and so will remember this, or
Right.
how much that's going to matter.
This is the first Telltale game you've ever actually played through to completion, right?
Yeah, I've actually, at this point, I'm probably farther along in Borderlands 2 than I was the first time I played it. But
gotcha. Or sorry,
yeah.
I'm talking about the Tales games.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, because I played that one. This is going way
Us,
back.
I think it was.
What now?
Wolf Among Us, was it?
Yeah, Wolf Among Us, and I just was like, this is so dark.
It is.
But yeah, and unfortunately, like the other ones that are out there, it's just maybe Batman I'd like, but I'm just not a Walking Dead guy, and I'm trying to think of the other ones.
There is one that you might be interested in, actually, that I might as well mention since it's not really a news story per se. They did just release episode 1 of the Tales from Guardians of the Galaxy, or whatever they're calling it. The first Tales game in the Guardians universe, and so we're going. I've heard the first episode is pretty good, although buyer beware. I always say I wait for the whole Telltale, all 5 episodes to be out before I purchase, because you never know how long the delay is going to be. But I am hearing pretty good things about the Guardians one as well, especially on the humor side of things, which I think is what made Borderlands so strong. Yeah,
that makes sense, and that is a really good point. The humor in it is really funny, but I just like the characters they created and the situations they put them in. Sure. And I think part of it is just kind of they keep it simple. Like it's not so simple that you can kind of project exactly what's going to happen. And there's certainly funny moments where you're like, oh, like that, did not expect that to come. And it ends up usually being pretty funny stuff. But they just kind of keep it simple and stick to what works. And I think that's why I like that game.
Definitely. Also, the writing is like so good.
Yeah, I really, it is, I think, really hard to do humor like that in with a movie or like a stand-up routine. This stuff is rehearsed 100 times.
Right.
With this, when there's 100 different dialogue options and stuff, it really does come down to obviously really good writing. And like I said, just now that I feel like I'm by the way, a little over halfway through the 3rd episode, which is the 3rd of 5. So now that I'm halfway into the game, like I kind of know what to expect from the players, and I think the consistency is the big thing, and that's really impressive because you are given quite a few options in terms of like how you'd respond to something.
Sure.
And they're assuming I don't panic and hit the wrong button, and I'd like to say that doesn't happen a lot, but it happens more often than it should.
Oh God, it's counting down.
Really?
Yeah,
I do not. I thought like they give you like a pretty significant amount of time.
Telltale games give you like 5 to 8 seconds to make a decision, and if you don't pick one, then your character says nothing, which has its own consequence.
Don't they also have like subtle QuickTime events as well?
Well, I mean, even the dialogue mid-conversation is arguably a QuickTime event, but yeah, they also have like QuickTime combat and stuff, like with actual on-screen prompts, like left, up, right.
Yeah, there's a set of turrets you go through that my characters took some damage, but anyways. but no, I mean that's part of the fun of it too. Is like sometimes I'm like, oh shit, I meant A, and then like you kind of laugh at like how that like because it's not what you want,
right?
Obviously.
And what I like, I also like how the QuickTime events actually respond to what you're doing. Like I remember in the Wolf Among Us, for example, in the first episode you have this epic fight with the Huntsman, I believe. When you're like, it's complicated and dark, so I won't get into the details, but you have a fight with him, and like if you mess up the QuickTime events, they have a separate animation for like that you messing up that part of the encounter. So it'll be like, oh, he like grabbed you by the throat and is like trying to hit your head against the wall, but you're like pushing back against him, and if you fail the QuickTime event, he like puts your head through the drywall, but then it continues. Which I like that. I think that's very cool that it's not just like a failure state and start over.
I think the biggest, we all have limited time, and I think the biggest compliment about this game is that, now I said this about Dishonored, and I need to get back to it so I can finally finish it, but it's kind of the same thing I have with that. I want to play it through it a second time to, for some of the 50-50 options where you're obviously taking one path or the other, I'll choose the other one. But I also just want to, A, play it through a little bit better, and B, there's just like, there's enough content in here where I know the second time is going to feel different enough.
Sure.
So that's I think, I'll probably leave it at that. But if you haven't checked it out yet, just given the low risk of it, like try out episode 1. If you don't like it, you know, that's fine. You didn't spend any money.
But like an hour and a half of your time at most. Like the
Yeah,
episodes aren't even that long, so.
No, it's not that long. And it's probably cheaper on PC. It's like $15 on Xbox to buy the whole thing. I mean, that's the other thing too, is it's not like a $60 game where you're like, oh, I'm getting my money's worth. It's that part of it is completely taken care of as long as you find the humor. You know, you like the humor or whatever.
Exactly. Well, and aren't most of the Telltale games available even on mobile? So you don't even have an excuse. Yeah, it's on Google Play and iTunes.
Yeah, I mean,
Side note,
it's just,
this game is listed as a 10 out of 10 on Steam.
I think this is maybe the I know that was supposed to be our final point, but with slapstick humor, usually you get just kind of the jokes carry themselves, but you don't care about the characters. Mm-hmm. This really does do a good job. I want to emphasize that. Like, it has great humor, but the characters are really, really important to it, and I really like that they took the care or whatever the time to do that.
I think what it is, and I think this is something that separates it from even like the main Borderlands series, is the jokes don't feel like one-off punchlines. Like, it's not like the joke isn't so much butt stallion. The joke is that one of the main characters has a character quirk that they get made fun of every time it comes up. It's that kind of stuff. It's stuff that's contextual and relevant to the story and the development of the characters. It's not just like, I named my diamond pony Butt Stallion. And you're like, yeah, that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But it's like stuff that's like relevant to the plot.
No, that's a really good point, and I think that's exactly how I'd put it. And it also, because the story is narrated by two main characters, you can tell, like, now I've gotten used to it where I'm like, okay, now someone's narrating and making things up.
Right. It's one of my favorite tropes in writing, the unreliable narrator, where they're both telling different versions of the story, and you have to try and figure out, is either of them telling the truth? Is neither of them telling the truth? What is true? What is embellishment?
Yeah, no, and actually that's it's a little bit, I don't know how to describe it. It sneaks up on you. So, like, you're not anticipating it, and I really like that, because all of a sudden I'm like, oh, the narrative's messing up now. And yeah, no, it's, I don't know. I mean, I think unless you're, I don't know. I mean, I feel like this has a wide appeal. But
I agree. I feel like this is the adventure game for people who don't really like adventure games. The Telltale games are already that, but I feel like Borderlands in particular is a property out of all the Telltale properties that attracts people who might not necessarily be into adventure games. This is your gateway to adventure games if you think you might be interested. And trust me, you may not realize it, but you're probably interested because they're great.
Right.
Awesome. Well, I'm really glad that you're still enjoying it. That said, I feel like we've barely heard anything from Brandon. So, Brandon, can you tell us what you've been playing this week?
Yeah, I've had a busy couple of weeks, so I only really got to one. And I talked about it a bit last week, but I finally went on ahead and beat it, and that was Adrift.
Oh, yeah. That, like, space station game or whatever, right?
Yeah, I just call it the space walking simulator. I feel like this is the best way to describe it. Just a quick recap in case anybody missed it. And I talked about it a couple of weeks ago. It's basically a simulator where you're in a semi-future universe, like maybe 20 years from like the present day. And you're on a space station and something's gone terribly wrong, and you have to find your way to get back to Earth. And this space station's rotating around Earth. I think you're like 437 kilometers away from Earth is the actual distance. And you're basically trying to fix portions of your space station so that you can power up the escape pod to get back home. So this game is interesting because after I like really getting into it and beating it, there was like three things that like jumped out at me ultimately.
Sure.
First of all, the music is really good. They have like your Space Odyssey 2001 stuff where you start getting to like your PC cores and stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, you're at the core of this particular part of the station. Cue the Space Odyssey music. Nice. So every time I'm in there, I kind of feel like I'm like when you're trying to kill the AI core in Space Odyssey, I kind of feel like that's the music that's being played.
Nice.
But then when you're drifting around in space, they're playing like these super classic piano songs, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, and they're so soothing and relaxing.
Very Kubrick.
Yeah. And all this is any sounds that are like in the, how do I describe it, the actual universe, since you're in a vacuum, everything is kind of this muffled sound from vibrations being transferred, or the illusion of vibrations being transferred through your suit. So you hear something when your suit hits something because it's transferring through your layers of your suit. But anything you toss around, like bottles bouncing off of walls, you get nothing. It's virtually silent.
That's really
except
cool.
for like your suit.
Talk about attention to detail.
Yep, and then even like the music that plays, with the exception of like how do I say it? With the exception of like some of the mood music for like going into the computer core and stuff like that, everything else is like an actual data pad that you pick up. So that's how you get a lot of the piano music, and it's
cool. You're like it's like
placed.
an MP3 player you're adding to or something.
Yeah, it's so Space Odyssey-ish because the MP3 player is like the size of like a desktop computer.
That's amazing.
Which is super weird. It's just like, is this like 2037?
Do you turn off the core by unscrewing sodas from the ceiling?
Yeah, exactly. So the second thing that gets me is this game makes you feel it's the most relaxing, the most terrifying game I've ever played. Because there's been points when I'm just like flying to the space station where I'm just like, and the music's playing, I'm like, oh, this is great. Because the space station is designed for like if you're actually living in space and isolated from like everybody else on the planet for 6 months. So it's open, airy, and windowed, very bright and light colors. It's supposed to make you feel at ease. But then when you go out into space, there's just nothing there. Except for debris.
Is it terrifying? Like, is it like swimming in the ocean? Like, do you just feel like what's underneath that I don't see? Or is
it's like,
lonely?
Oh god. So a perfect example is that each area has like communication towers that have broken off from the main station that you have to collect to get data readings. Usually they're just like voice cuts from different crew members.
Okay.
To tell you to piece up the story as to what went terribly wrong. So there was this one I went to, and the piano music's playing, and I go out there and there's like maybe 3 or 5 stars, and it's just this giant antenna floating in space, and you're flying out. And as the music's playing, you just hear this subtle dee dee dee. It's just like your spacesuit's leaking. You're gonna die soon.
That's horrifying.
Yeah, and then you just look out, and you look up, you look down, you look left, you look right, and you're like, there's nothing. There's nothing to touch. There's the only thing out there is that one radio tower in front of you, and there's nothing else.
Terrifying.
And I'm just like, there's nothing here. And I'm going to die.
That sounds nightmarish.
Yeah, and you can't really go fast. You can boost, but you're still a distance away, and you're just kind of just floating. So at some points, you might actually be going relatively quick, but since you're in the zero-G environment, you don't really feel like you're going fast. There's no resistance. You know, if you're playing like a game like Redout, you know you're going 2,000 miles per hour because you can see the wind effects going against the...
Right.
You know, going against the screen, like your controller's vibrating.
But you're not seeing, like, particles fly past you in space.
Yeah, you're seeing particles fly here and there, you know? But if there's no particles in space, it's just space and this thing in the distance. It just slowly gets larger and slowly gets larger, and the music's playing. You just know that you don't have that much air yet. You're probably not going to make it back. You're just hoping to God there's, like, a refill that's just mysteriously behind it or something.
Sure.
Oh god, it's horrifying. That part is horrifying because then you start running out of air and screen starts turning to black and white. And if you get the chat, I'm just like, oh okay.
Jeez. So
yeah, it just gets terrifying.
From the perspective of someone who doesn't usually play like walking simulators and stuff like that, like what do you think? Like, is it for everybody? Is it just for you because you really like sci-fi and space stuff? Is it for anyone who likes walking sims? Like, what are your thoughts there?
I think it's ultimately a short game, so I'd automatically suggest getting it on a sale. I got it for like $6 with like a dozen other games through a Humble Bundle deal. It is a good walking simulator. I feel like for walking simulators, you have to have a compelling story that you have to piece together, and you have to have it has to look good, and it also has to have like a particular like quirk per se. And in this game, the obvious quirk is the zero-G environment. Another thing that I think is really good about a walking simulator is mortality is kind of important.
Sure,
because
you can actually have failure states in this game, unlike most walking sims.
Exactly. You know, because
like running out of oxygen.
I think another thing, like Zolat or something, which is another walking simulator that came out. That was the one that I saw that I was interested in because you could die, and the game kind of pushed you to move forward rather than you just floundering around, which I thought was pretty good. And the last thing I liked about the game ultimately is this game kind of makes you think, because there's no objective bars everywhere. Like, you have to move 60 meters in this direction to get to this next part of the objective. The game is pretty structured. It'll tell you what to do, and you have to remember what to do. Be like, you have to do these 5 steps in this order.
No menus or anything tracking objectives?
No, I mean, you do have a map, like a local mini map in your like visor, but you're in a 0G environment, and it's only a 2D map. And there's also no there's no destination marker per se.
Gotcha. So it's just that you can kind of see what's around you. That's interesting. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, but the cool part is that it's really easy if you just follow the directions. It's just really funny. It took me a while because I was floundering for like a couple of hours.
You're spoiled by modern games holding your hand every day.
Exactly. But once I figured it out, it's like, oh, hey, go here, do these things, and then do 2 more steps and you're good. And it's really easy because things are color-coded.
Yeah.
And there's signs. And you can and then as you start exploring the ship more, you can actually visualize how the spaceship looked or the space station looked before it became an absolute disaster.
Sure.
You can make decisions off of that, and that's I guess a really good point. Is good, not just good art direction, but good game design, like environmental design, because you want to get the player to move forward and not kind of flounder in one space.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm just curious, what is the final verdict here? Because we've heard a fair amount about this game from the previous episode too. Like unless there's any huge feature changes you wanted to mention.
No, that was just it. The only real feature change is you have to follow directions, which was kind of new to me. I'm used to getting real obvious cues because I'm an open world gamer, so it's just like follow this point.
Sure, yeah. I had to learn
that's the game.
I had to learn that the hard way, actually, from Morrowind, because that was a game that did not use map markers or anything similar to it. You could set markers on the map on your own, but you had to actually read your journal and solve riddles and follow instructions that are turn right at the Dwemer Bridge, cross it, and then climb halfway up the mountain, and then just archaic stuff like that. But you learn to you have to relearn how to follow instructions. Basically, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, so that was the real game breaker feature. Ultimately, I'd say it's definitely if you find it on sale, go for it, because it's not long. It frequently jumps up on sale. If you got $5 burning a hole and you want to try something new, definitely go for it. If anything, the visuals are absolutely stunning for this game. Hell, you can just play the game and just rack up screenshots like crazy.
Right.
Honest to gosh, it's a ridiculously good looking game.
I have to say, I've seen some screenshots and it is just outrageous how nice it looks. It looks, it's they went for kind of a photorealistic style, and they did a good job with it.
Yeah, and usually I'm kind of not really too big on that, but this time it worked out really well.
Awesome.
Like I said, if you got a little bit of cash burning in your wallet, you want to try something new and it's on sale, go for it. I think when it's not on sale, it's $10.
That's not terrible.
I would say wait for a sale, because this isn't a game that's going to age anytime soon, quite frankly.
Sure.
But yeah, definitely a good experience I've had.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I am glad that we got some closure on that, because we've had a lot of games lately that we've been talking a lot about, but not a whole lot of finishing, so it's nice to get some closure.
I did play a bunch of other games, but it's more the same. I'm not having another conversation about Horizon.
Me neither.
So I had a lot of fun playing that, but not talking about that.
Yeah. You'll notice Zelda is absent from my list this week for the same reason. But yeah, so cool. I'm really glad that you had fun with that. Next up, I wanted to talk about a little game that you guys may have heard of called Yooka-Laylee. So, Yooka-Laylee is the new 3D platformer, spiritual successor to the Banjo-Kazooie series. A lot of people are saying it is basically Banjo 3E, and it is very interesting. It's a weird case. So this is a game I had to see for myself, because if you guys haven't caught this, there is a ton of contention about this title. Basically, it seems like you either love it or you just cannot even stand it. There's a little middle ground, but for the most part, people are taking very extreme views on this, and I'm curious as to why. So, I've been playing the game for probably about 10 hours now, and I'm enjoying it fairly well so far. There are certain mechanics that I really enjoy and certain ones that I cannot stand. So, you play in this as Yooka and Laylee, these two kind of slightly anthropomorphized animals, a la Banjo and Kazooie, the bear and bird. Now you are a chameleon and bat, and you're mechanically it's much of the same. The bat can like increase your jump distance and that kind of thing, and whereas the chameleon just kind of runs around. Or gosh, I'm gonna get burned. Lizard, chameleon? What? Probably not a chameleon. What is Yooka?
I doubt he's a chameleon, but he's definitely a lizard.
Yeah, he's a lizard of some kind. I apologize. I don't think... Is he
iguana.
A chameleon?
He looks like an iguana to me.
No, he's a chameleon. I'm totally right. He's got that curled tail. He's totally a chameleon. All right, sorry. We're all good. Moving along.
Wait. This is an important point, though. So he doesn't change colors, though, or anything?
No, he does, but not like to blend in with his environment. And I'll get to that.
Okay.
So,
all right, go on.
A lot of people are complaining about this for... One, the biggest complaint that I'm seeing is it's a collectathon, and collectathons are boring. I think that's definitely a to each their own kind of thing, but I do think there's a reason that 3D platformers are not still something that you see all the time. The days of Mario 64 and Donkey Kong 64 are long gone for a reason. I think that the mechanics of collectathons and a lot of the, repetition and stuff are kind of outdated at this point, especially from like a perspective of a modern gamer. And so I can understand someone who's like never played any of the classic Rare platformers seeing it as like, oh my god, is all you do in this game run around and pick stuff up? And the answer is pretty much yes. That's how these games are played. I'm enjoying it quite a bit so far. I've played 3 of the maps pretty thoroughly. Unfortunately, you can't really gauge how much of the game I've played just from that because of this mechanic that I don't really like. So... in the game, there's a hub world, and then there's 5 zones that you can go to that are like actual levels, if you will. These zones are kind of weird because not everything is available in the zone when you first enter it. Now, they do have the traditional 3D platforming gating, where later on, in later levels, you'll learn power-ups that will let you get certain collectibles, like in earlier levels. Like, say, you learn how to do a double jump or something, and now you can go back and get that collectible that was too high to reach. But they also have a method of gating that I cannot stand, and that is expandable levels. The way the game works is you have to collect... They've replaced the jiggies, which were jigsaw pieces that you collected in Banjo-Kazooie to complete puzzles that made pictures that you could go into. They've replaced that with pages, which are books, golden pages from a book that you collect, and you can use those pages to enter a world inside of a book. And the way it works is you have an initial like activation cost to open the book, and then after that you can come back out, and for larger and larger numbers of pages, you can expand the world bit by bit. You don't have any control over it. It's just kind of like expansion 1, expansion 2, expansion 3. But what it's doing is literally adding more parts to the level that have additional collectibles in them. This I take serious issue with. I've played a lot of collectathons, and I get that you can't always get everything on your first go. However, I really don't like the idea of having me learn and explore a level, learn it, memorize like where I can find stuff and all that, and then just randomly randomly just like attach additional locations to places I've already been. It makes it so that I don't know where I'm supposed to go when I expand a world. They do a quick like cursory cutscene kind of panning over the level every time you upgrade it, but it's really not enough to show you where you should be looking for all these new collectibles. I can understand I can't reach that, because at least I can see that it's there and I know where it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm drawing a couple of comparisons just in my mind to, interestingly enough, the first Gravity Rush. First, except on a much smaller scale. In Gravity Rush, what happened is that you had, I think, like 5 locations, but you were all separate. And in order to get to these locations, you had to go to the Shadow Realm and defeat a boss. And then when you went to the boss and defeated it, that part of the city that was stuck in the Shadow Realm for that particular zone would just reappear. in that location, but it was much smaller. Usually it would encompass like 5 or 6 buildings,
Sure.
which is a really small area. I'm just thinking about what you're saying, except on a much grander scale.
It's not that grand is the thing. It'll be like, it'll add a ramp here, a puzzle that is to get 1 pagey there. It's not like it's doubling the size of the level. It's like adding maybe 10% to the total size of the level, but that 10% is spread all over the level. It's not even like you go to one place and now there's like 5, pages now to collect there. It's like you go to one side of the map and there's one, then clear on the other side there's another one, and then underneath an area you couldn't get to before there's like some just random collectible quills and etc. Okay, so that is probably my biggest complaint with this game. I think it punishes you for playing like you would play one of these more traditional games. I think it's a terrible mechanic, and I think that the biggest problem with it is that I want more levels. I've played 3 of the 5. I've seen all 5. I don't love all the tile sets, but I do like the level design generally. However, games like Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, DK64, Mario 64, these are games that have 9, 10, 12, 20 levels in them. 5 is not... 5 huge levels, to me, is much worse than 10 small levels. Because in a 3D platformer, I want everything well crafted. And one of the issues that Yooka-Laylee has is that everything is too spread out. I want it to be compact. I want to be able to see where I'm going and have a goal in mind at any given time. I don't like how often in Yooka-Laylee I'm just running around in like an empty part of the map with no enemies or anything really to deal with, trying to figure out where I'm supposed to be going. All of that said, I'm actually enjoying the core gameplay of this game. I really like running around to different worlds. I love the characters. I think that the script is pretty great. I really like the power-ups. There's a couple different power-up systems. There's one power-up system. You collect quills, and you go to my favorite character, Trouser the Snake, who's a shady businessman who is wearing pants. Don't ask. He's got his tail going through one pant's leg and then into the other. And he will sell you different moves, and you can learn stuff like the ability to eat different fruits, which will allow you to you get like an elemental power-up. So you can eat like these ice fruit and you'll spit little ice balls, or you can get the fire fruit and you can breathe fire, that kind of thing. But then on top of that, you can also get a power-up that will make it so you can change your, like, state, if you will. And this is where that chameleon color change aspect, I guess, kind of comes in. An example of this would be in the second world. It's an ice world, and there is an ice cave you have to go through that when you step in, Yooka starts shivering and taking damage over time, like it's too cold. And the solution is to get this power-up, then go to a lit, like, brazier full of coals, and you lick up a coal, and it gives you like a 30-second... Your character turns like orange, and you have like 30 seconds of heat like stored in your character. And so then you can run through part of this ice cave to light the next brazier, wash, rinse, repeat. It's pretty cool. That said, it does kind of wear out its welcome fairly quickly with certain puzzles. Like I got kind of irritated when they started adding in... elevator puzzles that require you to shift between them rapidly and stuff, and if you fail, you have to start the whole puzzle over. That kind of thing definitely gets on my nerves a little bit. But I really like the system from from an aesthetic and gameplay standpoint. It actually works quite well when they do it in a fun way and not in a ridiculous, hardcore way. The game isn't too difficult either. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think you brought up a lot of things that I've heard complained about. I think they're legit gripes. I've heard the camera is not good, which to me is really confusing that they would like retain a bad element of some of these games.
I mean, the camera is bad in all 3D platformers and all 3D games where you have to platform. You know what else has a bad camera? Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
It has a really bad camera. Last Guardian.
Exactly. 3D platformers, cameras have always been a bit of an issue in 3D platformers. I have not had issues, so to speak, that people have described at all. Like, people are saying they can't control the camera. I think they just haven't had to learn how to control a camera in a 3D platformer, because it's always been difficult. Do you think it's difficult now with a right thumbstick, boys? Try doing it with the C sticks. Or, excuse me, it wasn't even a stick back then, the C buttons.
Yes.
Back in the day.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, I remember using the first PlayStation controller that didn't even have DualShock.
There you go. And then, but, I mean, that said, it's really been the fixed camera moments that have gotten to me. It's stuff like where you'll, like, come onto a puzzle that's got, like, a series of ramps that you need to, like, rotate so that they're all lined up to make, like, a single ramp you can climb to the top of. And, like, it will step back a bit. Your character is no longer centered on the screen. You're, like, at the bottom of the screen so you can see the whole puzzle. That can be jarring when you're, like, running around a corner and the camera locks to that angle. But honestly, no, I don't think I've ever died because of the camera. I don't think I've ever really, I don't know what people are complaining about with the camera. I've read by and large that the camera issues are, were much worse pre-release when a lot of these review copies were sent out. So it's also possible that a lot of that has been patched, but I really, besides the fixed camera stuff, I really don't have any issues with the camera outside of the same issues I have with all 3D games that, you know, use a thumbstick to control the camera.
Huh.
It's easy enough to center it behind your character, you know?
Yeah, no, that's... Go ahead.
No, it's interesting because... I don't know, maybe I'm just used to playing 3D platformers because the camera never really got to me too bad. It has to be really bad for me to, like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, if it was like every time... If it was
really
like every
bad.
time that I walked close to a wall, the camera, like, zoomed in on my character's face and I couldn't see anything, that, to me, would be problematic. This, not so much.
Yeah, because the last time I had a bad camera, like a real bad one, was Last Guardian. Oh, man, that was a bad camera.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you tried to climb Trico, if he was, like, remotely close to a wall, oh, man.
You just get smashed between the two.
Well, yeah, because you would just, like, suddenly be centered at the under Trico, and Trico's a giant weird monster thingy, in case you guys are wondering. And you're like, what? I just see a bunch of fur and then, like, a glitch where I'm seeing through the map, and I don't know where I'm climbing, and then it finally, like, pans back to you, and you're, like, climbing upside down, up the dang beast, and you're just like, what's going on here? I don't understand. So that's the last time a camera just, like, threw me up against the wall. But most of the time, it's just, I feel like 3D platformers have gone out of the way because when you did have them and they were very popular, you had to constantly control the camera as well as your character.
Sure.
And then whenever you were attacking, you had to focus, on your attack, and you had to go back to controlling the camera.
Yeah. I guess I just don't know what people are really expecting. I mean, for God's sakes, anything that you control that gives you control of the camera has difficulties. I mean, first-person shooters have shortcomings with dual thumbsticks, because what if you can't rotate fast enough? Is that a camera issue? To me, that's more problematic than, for single-player 3D platformer where it's wide-open fields and stuff for the most part. I mean, there are definitely, like, ledges and stuff you can fall off, but I'm never like, I can't judge this distance because my character has a shadow beneath them, so I always know where I'm going to land. Plus, you can, like, glide in this game.
Yeah. I just kind of want people to play with it more because once you figure out how to do it, I mean, it can actually help you in a lot of other games. Like, me playing 3D platformers helped me drive in GTA 5 because I constantly manage the camera as I drive.
There you go.
A lot of people, I didn't even realize that most people don't really do that. But my camera's never actively centered in, like, its locked
shouldn't
position.
be when you're driving. You should constantly be going, like, left side view, right side view, and then intermittently flickering, behind view.
Yeah, so I actually use the analog stick for that when I drive. It's like, oh, wow, I used to always do that. And it's so fun. Because, like, I'll do drifting, and then I'll, like, pan the camera so it almost looks cinematic. And that's not even me trying to be cool. It just helps me understand, like, oh, there's a bunch of cars I need to dodge.
Right. Here's the other thing, too. I played the game with keyboard and mouse a little bit. I mostly been playing with a controller. With keyboard and mouse, I have no camera issues. It's controlling a mouse with a camera in a third-person game, or, the camera with a mouse in a third-person game is, like, second nature. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tom, did you have another question you wanted to ask?
Yeah, kind of a more broad one. Just looking at the characters, I really like how they're designed, and I like the level layout. Not level layout, the aesthetics of it.
Sure.
I wonder, is this a game that the sequel is going to be better because maybe they can?
If there is one, 100%.
Yes, I guess that's where I'm going. It seems like everything you listed are issues that can be fixed.
I think that the biggest issue is that I think this game ran out of money. I think it needed another 6 months of polish. I think that's why we didn't get enough levels. I think that's why, I think a lot of things. And I know it got multiple sources of funding, including non-Kickstarter funding, but I think because they got that non-Kickstarter funding, they were probably beholden to producers and therefore deadlines. Because it does feel a little bit incomplete, I'm not going to lie. And I know that I have some strong opinions either way, but, well, you'll hear when I wrap things up. One other thing I really want to highlight here is the music in this game is fantastic. Not every single song is absolute gold a la Banjo-Kazooie. However, I'd say 3 out of 5 are, as it continues. And I'm not saying 3 out of the 5 levels of good music. I mean 3 out of every 5 songs you hear is solid. Are solid, rather. And it's Grant Kirkhope doing the soundtrack, who, if you don't know, is my favorite video game composer, probably. He did the Banjo-Kazooie soundtrack, Donkey Kong Country, and a whole lot more. But yeah, I really like, overall, I really like Yooka-Laylee. I wish I could like it more. I don't know that I can recommend it at a $40 price point. I think maybe for 20 to 25 would be probably more of a what I would say this is worth, which is a shame because I wanted this game I want it to make a ton of money. I want it to be a success. I want to see a sequel, and I want to see more from Team 17, from Playtonic. That said, I don't necessarily know. If I had to rate this, I'd probably give it like a 6.5, 7 out of 10. Not a bad game, just a little disappointing, maybe a little above average. I got to give it credit, though, because it has a very attractive visual aesthetic. I had no issues with frame rates or anything that people were complaining about. I didn't have issues with the camera. Most of my issues with the game are based on decisions that they actually made, such as the expandable levels.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Overall, though, yeah, for someone who's not played a 3D platformer, maybe hold off on this until you've had the opportunity to check them out or you see it on sale. There's plenty of great 3D platformers that you can always go back and check out. A lot of them are available through like Virtual Console or online. So, maybe give Banjo-Kazooie a shot. And if you're like, I really like this game. Yeah, Rare Replay. There you go. That has Banjo-Kazooie and Conkers, which are both much older 3D platformers, and you can really see how far platformers truly have come. In Conker, you don't have a shadow when you jump. It's horrifying. You never know where you're going to land. All right. Anyways, though, that's all I have to say about Yooka-Laylee. I don't want to hijack any more of the time. But we do have a couple more games we want to talk about here. But before that, we are 50 minutes into the show already, so we are going to take just a quick break. But don't go anywhere, because we are going to be right back. And we're back. Okay, so we got a couple more games I wanted to touch on here really quick, and then we are going to be moving on. I believe I just finished going on and on and on about Yooka-Laylee, so Tom, you want to talk about one of the other games you played this week?
Yeah, so, obviously I'm continuing to play Overwatch. It's one of my staples. I'm glad there's enough change in the game, just because it seems like just when I'm like, I'm kind of over this, they throw another thing at you.
Yeah, they got me back in. I finally checked it out, too.
Yeah, months. It's also it transforms the game if you play with people you know. It really does. Just the kind of little things you would think like you're talking over each other all the time, and this is not like pro level Overwatch where I'm sure there's like actual strategy and stuff.
Yeah,
it's more we're identifying like this person's good, this person's not. Or like, don't do that.
Even just like there's a widow up top.
Yeah. It's really the little things. And it's usually one or two people dominate the conversation. And then, for me, I'm more of a quiet person naturally. So I kind of just like toss in one or two things that I think are pertinent to the match. The other thing too, is there's a social aspect to it in the sense that I actually play with a friend of mine from San Francisco and then another friend from Fresno, California. Mm-hmm. And they all know people. Some of it's like classmates of theirs and stuff, or like people they know in person, and some of it's just like becomes friends of friends from. They have bigger kind of online networks. So I would say you can play it socially too. It's like half the time we're talking about something completely random, and then it's look out, as you said, for the Widowmaker or the
exactly. It's more about having open lines of communication that you can use quickly and easily than it than it is per se about like using code words and making it as efficient as possible. It's more like just being able to really quickly be like, hey, watch out for this, or hey, I'm changing heroes.
Yeah, exactly. Or hey, we need to change from the Lucio to Mercy or something. But
exactly.
That was like reminds me of my Destiny days. Half the time when we were in like our pseudo raids, we would be talking about, oh yeah, I just started my new job last week, man. It's great. As we're like taking out like the final boss.
Exactly.
It's like somebody would be like axe murdering Crota in the second raid, and be like, "Yeah, man, my new job's great. I just got my first paycheck. Buy the new DLC for this." And it's just like, "Oh man, that's great." Yeah, so I guess that's like an awesome symptom of like a good multiplayer game where you're still invested and you're playing, but you're also chilling with your bros at the same time.
Definitely. And that can be double-edged. It's good that that you guys are having this experience in some games with smaller matchmaking, because my first experience with that kind of thing was 40-man raids in WoW, and that was just a clusterfuck of everyone shouting into their mics.
Yeah.
Get out of the fire!
Yeah, so I think having said that, I unfortunately, and this is why I haven't played many video games, like with the twins being in town and just obviously doing some shows at night. I haven't been with this group much, and I really need to get back with them to do this brawl, because I jumped in, and it's it's PvE. You can play it either 4 random players, or you can play with a set, which I believe, Henry, you're gonna have to help me out, but it's Torbjorn, Reinhardt.
Torb, Reinhardt, Tracer, and Mercy. So I would say, especially when in the set, the 4-man set, it is pretty clear what you should do at like any given point, and yet like you get through 3 checkpoints where you have to. It's kind of like capture the flag, I guess. Maybe that's the best way to put it. Mm-hmm. Where you have to guard yourself against obviously these robots that are coming down, and I'd say it's closer to like point defense, like they already have to capture the point.
Yes, exactly. So I think, at least the way I see it, like, or at least in my experience, even if that's done kind of incorrectly, and we're playing on normal mode, so we're not playing the high difficulty or anything, I get through those pretty routinely.
Oh, please. It's bananas how easy this mode is. Are you kidding me? On standard? Fuck. I did like 5 matches of it last night and just like dominated. I don't lose a single one.
So my experience is the only time people have trouble is maybe the last one. And it is like, literally, it's just, you try to explain to people like, don't leave this zone and you'll be fine. But people go chasing the robots up and down the stairs.
Man, I chase people all over the place. What hero are you playing as? Because like that was my thing. I played as Tracer, and I was just like, to be fair, I play very aggressive heroes, but every match I was in, I was like just destroying stuff with DPS characters. Were you playing as maybe somebody a little more laid back?
Yeah, I guess I think I played as everyone but Tracer, and to be fair, I'm not a good Tracer, so it's fine.
I'm not a great Tracer, but it helps that the Omnic literally stand completely still. So you just aim a clip into their head and one shot, or it kills them with one full clip.
So so that's correct. But I would say, like, if you see Reinhardt getting way out of position, you're like, what are you doing? Like, you know what I mean?
Sure. I usually try and back him up, but I hear what you mean. Yeah. I think the key is maybe, though, to the role that I was playing helped, because every single time a shielded enemy, the giant bomb enemy, or the, Bastion style enemies would spawn, I was like instantly sprinting over to them, using my ultimate if I had it, just unloading shot after shot till they were completely gone. Like, most of the time I was taking out the shielded enemies before they even got to the team. So I think that's part of it too, is like, you can't just have an offensive player who's standing on the zone shooting at incoming like basic enemies. You have to actually hunt down the elites.
No, and that's fair. I would say, so I've had the opposite experience of you. I've gotten through the first 3 checkpoints really easily, but in the final standoff or whatever you
talking about where you have to take down like 4 Orisas?
Yeah, and just like it is not a difficult concept. Like literally, especially Reinhardt and Torbjorn really need to just kind of stay.
I mean,
near
really,
the objective.
really, all that needs to happen is Torbjorn and Reinhardt very slowly move forward while Tracer like just unloads damage.
Yeah, and somehow I understand the Tracer dying. Unfortunately, like there's always one person in the group who does not understand this concept. It's either a Mercy that strays too far, or like a Reinhardt who tries to do too much offensively, or a Torbjorn that's just not being played well.
Maybe I just got lucky because I didn't even. I think I had one match where we had a teammate get downed, and it was me, and it was because I was playing as Reaper. Like that was in the free mode.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, maybe I've just been playing with like dumb people, but
They're just bad luck.
Yeah, it is. But it's so funny. It's really the last 30 seconds that have gotten beat, and it's just frustrating because it's like you really just need to hang on at this point. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't be over aggressive. And
sure. It's so interesting to me that
you don't want to overextend.
It's really interesting to me that you had such a different experience than I did, because I was literally coming out of it last night going, all right, I'm going to stop playing because I'm getting bored with this, but this is overpowered how easy it is to farm loot boxes with this. And now, it sounds like from your perspective, you would think it'd be more efficient to do like any other mode.
Yeah, and so I'm going to get back into it. And I think if I'm playing with 3 other people I know, I think hopefully I'll just cruise through with the loot boxes. I mean, that's my hope.
You should get a PC and play with us.
And for the record, I was playing with randoms. Like I was not on a pre-made. But I really enjoyed it too. I think Uprising is fantastic. It's probably my favorite game mode that I've played. I didn't get to play Junkenstein's Revenge, but I like Uprising because it ties into the story too. It's like set 7 years in the past. It's Tracer's first mission, which is really fun. All the characters look totally different. Torbjorn looks like he's like a real person almost, which is really weird to see. He doesn't look like a dwarf.
Yeah, he's like wearing like a trucker hat and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And
like he doesn't look like a dwarf. He just looks like a short dude with a nice beard.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. And like he doesn't have quite as much like mechanical parts all over him. But I really like the presentation. I like that it has the cutscene at the beginning, kind of filling you in on what's going on and giving some more background to like the Omnic War. And just overall, I really like how they changed up King's Row. Like you guys may have noticed that they added some new vehicles and took some away. I know there's a bit of a meme war going on online right now over the addition of a security vehicle that has wheels, because if you guys remember, the one thing we were promised at the launch of Overwatch was no cars with wheels. They would all be hover cars. That's meme funny. In reference to Project Titan, which is the canceled Blizzard game that was going to be made, and then when it was shelved, they took the assets and produced Overwatch. One of their rules was no hover cars, and so Overwatch made the rule no regular cars. However, we have a regular car. They have a pretty good excuse for it. It's 7 years in the past, but people are still memeing all over about it.
I think that was a really good point, though. Just the fact that they can take a thing that you're familiar with it, and it felt like I was playing a new game. Like maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but like. Yeah,
I'd say that's a bit much. What I would say is it feels like the most original game mode they've added so far. And on top of that, I think if it had like 3 other maps, maybe 2 other maps that were similarly set up, I would be playing it probably as my primary mode. I did get bored of King's Land, or what is it, King's Landing?
King's Row.
King's Row. What, King's Landing? It's like Warcraft,
that's funny.
I think.
Anyways, I mean, I don't know how much more we need to say about it, but it's a fun mode. Yeah, I'm glad they added it.
I do have one other thing I wanted to talk about with Overwatch, which is I finally tried out Capture the Flag.
Yeah.
I really, really, really hate it. It's the worst. I think it's maybe my least favorite game mode in all of Overwatch.
What? Explain yourself, sir.
Okay, so it's not balanced at all. Certain characters are significantly better than others for this game mode type.
Very true.
99% of people don't even go for the flag. The maps are extremely boring and uninspired feeling. Like it's just like straight on, like, even, which I get that they want to make them symmetrical, but like the maps they chose to go with are some of my least favorite maps in the game. I really, really didn't enjoy it. It didn't feel like I was working towards an objective. It felt like I was dicking around having to defend because the rest of my team was going for kills the whole time. And I played 3 matches of it and hated every single one.
So I will say this: it's definitely a mode that's a lot better with people you know, or at least can communicate
That is
with.
not a valid excuse. All games are better with more people. Period.
Well, I would say it makes a significant difference.
Sure, but again, I think that's true of all of the modes in Overwatch.
Sure, no, that's completely true. I'm surprised you don't like the maps as much. I thought given that they are symmetrical, I thought they did a decent enough job. I guess it doesn't feel new.
I had two matches I blank on the name. It's the like stone one that has the sort of, you have two ramps going down to the center and a lowered arena that's a capture point when you're playing it on a different mode.
Yep, yeah. I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah, it's like kind of a sort of Mayan looking aesthetic.
Yep.
And I hate that map. I think it's the worst map in Overwatch, and it's terrible for Capture the Flag in my opinion. It's just too many walls. You've got no line of sight anywhere. I don't know. I did not enjoy my time with Capture the Flag at all, which is a shame because I really, really, really liked Uprising, which is, the other brawl.
Yeah, you didn't play the market or whatever. I can't remember what the hell they call that one. It's some Asian market.
No.
I'm trying. It's another Capture the Flag one where you have to go into a little small square building when you're capturing the flag.
No, I don't think so.
The flag, I'm sorry, capture the point.
No, I don't think I did. But
that one's pretty solid, and I'm trying to remember what the other.
I don't think that my issue was the map. I think my issue was that Capture the Flag is not suited to Overwatch. Having different heroes with different loadouts that are so wildly varied is not conducive to a fun, fair, like Capture the Flag game, in my opinion. There's certain characters that get chosen every single game. Everybody always chooses Symmetra for CTF. Everybody always chooses, there's almost always a Tracer. Someone will choose Mei. Someone will choose, my guy, Roadhog. I mean, it just feels like there's like 6 characters that you can viably play. Someone will choose Sombra. Like, there's certain characters are just so much better that it doesn't really feel super fair. It doesn't feel like most of the players are even going for the objective of the game type. And I don't know. Overall, it just wasn't very enjoyable. It was not Capture the Flag has never been my favorite mode, but this is one of my least favorite versions of Capture the Flag that I've played too.
So the way I think it's optimized is you should have only really D.Va or Sombra try to capture the flag.
See, that there, that's why it's bad.
I mean, I think it's really like that's valid. It's just like, for some people, they're like, whatever. Like that, it's not the best.
Well, I mean, to me, that's what we're discussing is if it's how good of a mode it is. So, like, I'm not sure.
Right. But I think it's a good enough mode. I will go back and play it. I guess that's how I describe it.
I probably will not go back to CTF. With the number of modes and stuff they've added between, like, Elimination, now Uprising, and having the ability to do, like, the different arcade brawls and stuff, or excuse me, different types of arcade modes and stuff, I don't see any reason for myself at least, to go back to CTF. The games aren't fast, they're not rewarding, they're missing the most fun part of Capture the Flag games, which is running the flag. Like, running the flag is people almost never even capture the flag, and if they do, the runs are so short that it's like you don't get that tension. It's just like flag found, 5 seconds later, flag captured. Like Did
you play the Greek map? I think that's the other one I was thinking of. I think that one's a little bit better.
I will say that I did specifically point out the map that I chose as the worst one. So you're right. There are better ones, but the majority of my games were on the one that I can't stand. I don't know. Overall, I just was not impressed. I was really hoping that there was going to be more unique feeling, and it just feels like a really kind of half-assed, tacked-on mode, especially coming off the back of Uprising. Because remember, this is my first experience with both of those, so maybe my expectations were a little too high, but this feels like this is like, to me, less work than a player mod. They just threw down 2 flags and then said it's good enough. And to me, I think they would have needed to do a little more. Maybe add, like, booster pads on the ground that will bounce you forward, like, that can jump you forward really far, but they don't work if you're holding a flag. That way you can be better at capturing people back. Maybe adding in some clearer ways to tell where the flag was dropped and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to, like, anything. It just feels very, very, very rudimentary, and that's not what I'm looking for in a game mode in a game like Overwatch that is usually extremely polished.
Makes sense.
That said, I'm glad you're enjoying it, and don't let me not liking a certain game mode take away from your, your happiness with it.
I'm never playing it again.
I guess I just thought it would be more themed and stuff with the rear of the rooster and all that. I was kind of hoping the flags would be like roosters, and I don't know. It was just,
Sure.
It just felt kind of uninspired. Anyways, sorry, I don't mean to be so negative on it. Let's move over to something a little bit more positive that we also both played this week. Overwatch, we just finished. Hearthstone, the other Blizzard title. So, Tom, we finally got around to playing some matches last week. I'm surprised to say it was actually pretty good back and forth. I did not get my usual enjoyment of just utterly dominating. Kudos. Yep. Tom has really buffed out his collection, you guys. He's got more legendaries than I do.
Yeah, I would say, so obviously it's one of my main games. I'm probably racking up packs every day, but I would say, and you can correct me if you're wrong, or if you think I'm wrong, I would say I had more kind of depth in the sense that I had a couple different decks I could run, but your Warrior Pirate deck was pretty much unstoppable. I don't think I could have beaten it with any of my stuff. So
yeah, I'd say that's accurate. I'd say because you had 5 or 6 pretty darn good standard decks, whereas I had one playable standard deck. But I would say again, my wild decks were not all complete. Like my wild decks did quite well, but they didn't. I mean, I'd say maybe I came out on top by 1 or 2 matches. It was very close.
Yeah, I had a good time. I mean, we were, to kind of peel back the curtain, we were both on the phone. Your Smack Talk game's a little bit better than mine, I'll be honest. But that what I just said right there should probably reveal all. But it was kind of fun, and it's a really fun social game, which is kind of funny because probably most people just play it against random people. But
yeah, exactly. But when you play with friends, I mean, shit, we played for 5 hours or something.
Yeah, no, it was an incredible amount of time, and it was it's just fun. I mean, you can just set people up a lot. I mean, because
when you're communicating, you mean when you deliberately mislead someone, or oh, you didn't go for my guy there?
Yeah, or there's just kind of fun stuff if you get out to an early lead, obviously one person's maybe talking a little bit more, and then all of a sudden there's that kind of moment.
I don't know what you're talking about there, Tom. I surely have no experience with that.
It's a perfect paced game. I mean, I suppose some people probably play it a little slower than others, but I just like the pace of it, where you can kind of have the kind of smack talk back and forth, and at the same time you're not just grinding through a game. I really think that at least the games we played, I mean, we got through those pretty quick.
Yeah, I'd say 10 minutes max per game, maybe 15.
Yeah, so as much as on day one I was like, man, I'm ripping apart decks that I've worked on, and I don't like that I can't use these cards or these strategies. I don't know. I thought I've had a pretty good experience, at least so far, in terms of the new decks that you can create and all that.
Definitely. Which, speaking of, I actually have a second very, very good standard deck now that we're going to have to put through the ringer, Tom. My Quest Rogue deck. And let me tell you, it is on par with the Pirate Warrior.
Oh, God. So is aggro, same thing?
Oh, it's super aggro, except this one. Do you guys know the Rogue Quest? So the Rogue Quest is, for those who don't know, the Rogue Quest is you have to play 4 cards that have this, or 4 creatures that have the same name. And so you have to do that with some manner of returning creatures to your hand, or using cards that will make copies of creatures. Mm-hmm. And so the way it works is, once you've played 4 creatures with the same name, you get a card called Crystal Core, which is 5 mana. And Crystal Core makes it so that it's not something that stays on the board or anything. It's a spell you just play once, and once you've played it, for the rest of the game, all creatures you play will be 5/5s.
Whoa.
It's really good. And my deck is full of 1 and 2 mana creatures.
Times, so.
It's so brutal. It's so brutal. I can do stuff like play a the boar for 1 mana, the 1/1 charge. Drop that. Yeah. It's a 5/5 charge for 1 mana. Attack with it, bounce it to my hand, drop it again, and attack again.
Well, and people put Moros in that deck because you keep on doing the servants. It's a lot of the theory.
Actually, that's not correct. I mean, they do morose for the servants to get buffed, but the servants actually don't count. This is a nuance that I think a lot of people don't see yet in in Hearthstone. As a Magic player, I'm very used to wording being very, very important, and there's a distinction to be made here. Specifically, when you play a creature with the same name, it counts towards your total, not when you summon one. So if you play like a card that summons another creature as a battle cry, that does not count towards the total. Only cards that you play from your hand count towards the total.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh,
and that's an
interesting.
important distinction to make, because there are cards I have that when they die, they put creatures into play. That would be great, but I can't use those. Instead, what I use is cards that when they die or when they come into play, they put creatures in my hand.
Ooh, it all makes sense now.
That way you can play them. It's a really, really fun deck type. I highly recommend it if you're trying to decide which quest to go with. I had to craft my quest. I disenchanted a bunch more stuff, but I really wanted to have a quest deck, and I think Rogue was the right choice. It's very approachable. It's super fun to play. If you're like an ex-Magic player or somebody who really likes combos and strategy, highly recommend it because you do a lot of thinking 3 or 4 turns ahead, and it is just as fast, if not slightly faster, than my Pirate deck. In that I have won a couple matches now on turn 5, which is always fun. Activating Crystal Core like turn 4 or earlier, most people just forfeit.
I've definitely seen this deck before. And I'm not thrilled that you have it.
Hope you're ready to play it a bunch. But
he already knows what it is.
That doesn't mean I'm not going to make him put it through the ringer. I got to put it through its paces. But
you know what? I don't even know. Is there a certain? Well, maybe you don't want to tell me this. I wonder if there's actually a certain type of deck that really plays like well against that. I feel like it's really.
There are, but I'm not going to tell you what they are. There's actually several.
All right. Well, either way, mine's kind of the same setup, but my dragon priest is really solid. I'm trying to think of what else I played that really has performed well, but that one stands out. Oh, and I like my Zoo Druid. That's super fun.
Don't forget about your Suicide Warlock.
Yeah. Oh God, I don't know how that's my number 1 deck.
I don't understand you
works.
at all. He has a deck that it has like 8 creatures that deal damage to himself in it and no healing. Tom, we played a game where I was playing as a priest, and you kept playing AoE spells that damaged both you and I to the point where you got yourself down to 11 health without me playing a creature. You got it. I'm telling you, man, it's a suicidal deck. It works, except when, it didn't. But yeah.
It's interesting. It's definitely, if you, it's one of those FU decks where like I can, even if I'm obviously not communicating with the other person, I can tell with the way they're playing, like they're,
confused.
Yeah, they're confused because like just they're sitting there staring at the cards in their hand, wondering what to do. And it seems like they'll get me down to 3. I'll drop Jiraxis.
Yeah, that was the good thing I was going to say is you do have some healing technically. You have Jiraxis.
Yeah, and if I can drop Jiraxis, as long as they don't have a lot of creatures on the board, as long as I can drop him and then drop the Unshackled guy. You can try. Like I have so many demons in that deck. Like
sure.
They just give up as soon as they see them all. But
to be fair, though, that is. Yeah. I'm assuming you've gotten that combo like 3 times.
Yeah, but even if I don't get that combo, by that point in the game,
you're already dead.
Right.
Just kidding.
Or by that point in the game, like I can kind of control the board and
Yeah, it is certainly a strong deck. It just scares me. I wouldn't play it because it's too much self harm.
Yeah, I that's a kamikaze mission.
I believe the scientific term is autosadistic.
There you go.
Right,
exactly.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Well, I'm going to wrap up what we've been playing this week. We got about 15 minutes to burn through this news here, so let's go ahead and push forward. If you guys haven't checked out Journey to Ungoro, though, I'm having a lot of fun with it. Probably best Hearthstone expansion in a little while here.
Yeah, it's solid.
All right. So, on to the news. First up, those of you who are maybe too young or just missed out on it, or Brandon, and just played, have not played the original Starcraft it is temporarily free, both StarCraft and Brood War, in anticipation of the upcoming StarCraft HD re-release. They're going to be, if you guys don't know, they're doing an HD re-release of StarCraft just to make it run better on modern systems and support widescreen, basically.
I'm totally getting that. That's the one game I missed.
But really, I would recommend that anyone who doesn't have it at least downloads Brood War, because I have a feeling it's going to get tied to your Blizzard account, which means you'll be able to download the original one anytime. It's probably not going to have the widescreen and all that, but it is probably the greatest RTS ever created. So if you haven't ever checked it out and you're curious, maybe you need a little inspiration, you can always go online and look up some amazing Brood War tournaments. Some of my favorite esports moments are from StarCraft Brood War, just because the micro was so intense and everyone knew all the game rules down to the finest thing. And that was back when patching wasn't really a thing, so it wasn't like you could memorize movement speeds and stuff and they would never change. It's a level of play that a lot of people don't get to see. Highly recommend Brood War. Again, one of the greatest RTSs ever made. You can get it for free through Blizzard this week, and for maybe a little longer. Next up, we have a pretty great bundle I wanted to highlight really quick for Android users on the Humble store. This is the Humble Mobile Adventure Bundle, and I actually picked this up yesterday. It is pretty amazing. It is pay up to $6. It's always pay what you want, but there's the 3 groups. And the collection this time is Grim Fandango Remastered, the LucasArts Classic. If you haven't seen it, it is so good. Look up a Let's Play if you're not going to play it, because holy shit, it is really good writing. One of the classic adventure games of the 90s. We also have Machinarium, which is an extremely popular point-and-click adventure game that came out back in, I'd say 08, 09. Really beautiful hand-painted backgrounds and stuff. You play as a little robot going through a kind of fantastical world, which is pretty fun. In addition to that, you can get Kathy Rain. This is a game I hadn't actually heard of, but apparently it is a sort of side-scrolling adventure game where you play as a strong-willed college girl with a knack for detective work and a Harley. So, if that sounds up your alley, that is the first tier, and that's only $1 that you have to pay for those 3, which right there, that's your value, because seriously, Grim Fandango and Machinarium alone are worth it. Then they also, for the $4 tier, have Her Story, which was Game of the Year for many people last year, or the year before that? That was the game where it was the sort of strange adventure game where you're looking through a recording database of police files and listening to this woman, and you can ask certain questions by typing them in. It's completely freeform, and she'll answer your questions, and you have to solve a mystery by asking the right questions and unraveling different plot threads. Very interesting, unique take on adventure games. Then something completely different, we have Sorcery, which is a game based on the good old-fashioned choose-your-own-adventure books from back in the day. This is like a modern adaptation of one made to be played on mobile, but it's a sort of tabletop presentation choose-your-own-adventure, which is very fun. This is less of a point-and-click adventure solving puzzles, more of a choose-your-own-adventure novel like you might have read back in the day. Also in that tier is Burly Men, which is a game where I haven't actually checked it out yet, but as I understand it, it's a game about 3 fishermen who go through a series of adventures involving mythological creatures, and it has a very pretty and simple art style that is very appealing. That's probably the next thing I'll be playing. And then in the $6 tier, you have Nomoria 3, which is a beautiful point-and-click adventure game made by the same guys who made Machinarium, and where you play as a gnome, kind of going through this fantastical fantastical fantasy world, solving puzzles for animals and stuff you find along the way. And then last, but certainly not least, the game that I have been playing nonstop since I bought this yesterday, Lumino City, is a game that came out a little while ago. It's available for PC as well. I'm not sure about consoles. It's a very cool art style. You play as a little girl who is going through a city trying to find her grandfather, and the whole world is a papercraft world. And I don't know if you guys know what papercraft is. It's kind of a newer thing. It's basically when someone uses origami in real life and then shoots the backgrounds as though it's like a claymation type thing, and then they just superimpose animation on top of it. So all of the backgrounds you're walking through in the game are like real life folded paper.
It's super cool. Like I'm just looking at videos, or sorry, not videos, images that
it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, like, I love this concept, and I think just being able to see it physically and just see them set up the cameras and some guy folding the paper or whatever, and then being able to play in that world is such a cool like concept or whatever.
Exactly, especially because I thought it was rendered at first, and then I saw that video and was like, oh damn, this is extra cool. Like, just the effort that went into it. Also, it's a pretty fun, slightly different adventure game that makes you solve kind of some puzzles that you might not be used to, which is pretty rad as well, I think.
Yep.
That's pretty much it for the bundle, but like I said, $6 for all of that, $4 for everything up to Burly Men, or just $1 for Grim Fandango, Machinarium, and Kathy Rain. Highly recommend checking it out if you've got an Android. It's really easy to use, and yeah, great value. Next up, we have some Heroes of the Storm news. First up, just a really quick announcement that Genji has been added to the roster. Genji from Overwatch, the cyborg ninja, is now a playable assassin class in Heroes. Also in Heroes news, they are going to be running a pretty amazing deal in anticipation of Heroes 2.0, the upcoming update it's like the huge update that's going to be rolling out in the next week, apparently. Oh, Jesus, sorry if that came through autoplay. But yeah, so next week 2.0 comes out, and they've announced these Mega Hero bundles. So you can get one Mega Hero bundle for free. Each bundle has 20 characters tied to a single like play style. There's Assassin, Tanks and Bruisers, Support and Specialists, and the Flex class, which is kind of just a general class. Kind of jack of all trades. The way it works is when you like log in and like apply for your freebie here during this time frame, you will be given 100 gems, which that's a new currency they're adding. It's like a premium currency, and with that 100 gems, you spend it on a mega hero bundle of your choice. So for one of those class sections, and you'll unlock 20 heroes totally for free, which this is a pretty big deal because for those who don't know, I'm pretty sure that in general, Heroes of the Storm characters are $8 to $10 a piece. And so getting 20 for free is actually insane.
Yeah, that's a pretty sweet deal.
Well, it's especially a sweet deal if you ask me, because in my opinion, the biggest shortcoming of Heroes of the Storm is that they gate the champions. Like, it's a game that I think could have a lot more appeal to the MOBA community if it wasn't so ridiculously overpriced. And so for me, even if I don't even start playing Heroes, I will absolutely be making use of this bundle, because in 5 years, I don't want to have to spend $200 for this 20 heroes, or like spend hours and hours and hours of the time playing to unlock them. It's worth noting you can unlock them for free. It's $10 or play a whole ton, but we're talking like, play for a couple days to get one additional hero, and there's, I think, there's, I don't know, like 70 heroes or something in the game now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, just wanted to touch on that, because if you are a Heroes fan, or even if you're not, you may want to go ahead and get that value. That does it for the Heroes of the Storm news. However, we do have some more upcoming DLC that I wanted to talk about. Brandon, I'm sure you'll be a big fan of this. Nier Automata is getting its first DLC very soon here, and it is going to feature some costumes from previous releases. They're going to have the Nier Replicant for Androids 2B, 9S, and A2, which I'm sure means something to fans of the series. It's also going to have records for music tracks, new equipment and cosmetic accessories like hairspray and stuff, masks, new masks that have unique effects when you're wearing them, and some apparently special bullets that change the appearance of enemy bullets, which is kind of weird. I don't quite understand what that means, but interesting. But I think that the biggest highlight here is that they've also added in the ability to fight the CEO of Square Enix.
This seems so fitting from what I know about this game.
Who appears to be it's literally a model of the character, and he and and the developer shoot their faces at you.
Yeah.
Like
So
giant
like
floating versions of their own heads. I don't know what I'm looking at, and to add even more confusion, the name of the DLC is 3C3C1D11944097. So Nier continues to be an utterly baffling and Japanese game. If you are into it already, then you're probably going to absolutely love this DLC. It's got fan service with different costumes, references to old games, and maybe one of the weirdest boss fights I've seen in years.
Yeah, this is all in celebration for their very successful launch and the fact that it's selling so well. Although I don't really know if this is a good thing or a punishment. It does look outrageous, though, and that's kind of what their sell is. I'm intrigued to see how they're going to do the system with because they're just reskinned bullets from the bullet hell mode, and they're usually, either blood red or a very deep, deep crimson. Mm-hmm. And they have different hitboxes, more or less. Like, some can be shot out and some can be melee. So I wonder if the heads are going to be like different colors, or some are going to be flaming or not. It seems like some of them are regular, and then the ones that you have to melee are like purple.
Sure,
vice versa.
right? Because
I don't know. It looks hilarious because it's literally the developer and the producer just in suits.
Right. I hope that one of the special bullet things you can get is that once you beat them, you can turn all enemy bullets into their heads.
Oh, that'd be great.
But yeah, so I just wanted to touch on that really quick. We are running out of time here, but I did have a quick roundup of Nintendo coverage I wanted to do here. We're just going to run through this real fast. First up, the Switch is officially the best-selling Nintendo console of all time. Ever. Which is pretty huge when you think about it. They sold over 906,000 units in the U.S., just in the U.S. last month, and that's insane. As a comparison, the Wii U in that same time, in the first 6 weeks, only sold 890,000, so about 20,000 less units. Pretty huge deal. They're saying that they're really, they're kind of bragging about this a little bit. They're really excited about it. Hopefully this will help light a fire under their asses to produce the units a little faster, since they mention in here again, which I've heard this several times, that they've sold 925,000 copies of Zelda for the Switch, but only 906,000 Switches. So that's 24,000 copies of Zelda that don't even have a Switch. That means that Zelda is such a killer app that it has an attach rate of over 100%. And for those who don't know, an attach rate is the rate at which a game is purchased with a console. Huh. So basically, people are buying this game even though they don't even own a Switch yet, in anticipation of getting their Switch to play the game. That's how much of a killer app Zelda was. This may be one of the best killer app launches I've seen in my lifetime. I mean, I'll be honest, I basically bought a Switch just for this game, and I don't regret it, really. Because I know it'll pay off, over time as I continue to get more titles for it. But in the meantime, fantastic.
This is pretty nuts.
Yeah, just wanted to touch on that really quick. Some positive Nintendo news before I get to the negative Nintendo news. You guys may have
they always
caught
come
this.
in batches, huh?
Yeah, no kidding. You guys may have caught this right on Thursday last week. Unfortunately, this kind of came out after we had gotten the show recorded. But right on the tail end of the show last week, Nintendo came out and announced that they are discontinuing the NES Classic. They will no longer be producing any more of them, even though they've never been able to even really get them on store shelves because they've been selling out so fast. It's kind of insane. Basically, Nintendo's perspective is, we wanted to make this fun thing, likely to tide them over between kind of the end of the Wii U's life cycle and the Switch's life cycle starting. And they made it. It was way more successful than they ever imagined, so they did a second production run, which sold out immediately. Then they did one final run, which is the run that they're going to be releasing on shelves soon. And now they're just done. They're like, look, we're not producing any more of these. Which is really, they basically say, we never had intentions for this to be an ongoing product. It's supposed to be an anniversary product, and so we're discontinuing it. Well, this ties right into the next story that we have for Nintendo, which is the NES Classic is now going for $350 to $400 per unit on eBay. Reminder that this is a $60 unit at retail. The secondhand market has literally exploded with NES classics, and people are paying $100 more for the classic than they are paying for the Switch.
Yeah, so my question here is, how does Nintendo benefit financially from this? Isn't this all secondhand money?
It's secondhand money because Nintendo stopped producing them. So then
they
got bought up by
Nintendo.
second-party sellers. Well, this is my theory. I think I have two prongs to this, and then we do actually have to close it out. But prong number one, Nintendo manufactures their own hardware. So I think that Nintendo needed to free up some of the automation they were using to make more Switches, because they can't keep the Switch on shelves, and that's the thing they're trying to push right now. That is my first theory. Second theory, it undercuts the the virtual console market. For $60, you're getting, 40 games for the NES Classic?
30, I believe.
Sorry, 30 games? Those games are $10 a piece on the virtual console. Like, if you want to buy, Mario 64, that's 10 bones. If you want to buy Super Mario World, that's 7. The prices are insanely high. And so I think part of it is that the value was too good. I think they're going to be rolling out the virtual console on the Switch soon, and when they do, they have no announcement. I'm hoping they will soon. But when they do, the last thing they want is for you to be like, well, I already own 3/4 of the games that I could buy on here from the classic era on my NES Classic.
Yeah. Makes sense. Freaking Nintendo. Nintendo just confuses the hell out of me.
They hate money. They just hate money. I don't know. I think what they should, personally, what I think they should have done is just move the manufacturing of these things, the NES Classic, out of house. I also feel very, very bad for retail workers, and also retail workers, I feel for you, because you're going to get hassled by a lot of people. Also, people who made third-party peripherals for this thing, I am so sorry. You guys remember, these things have an inch-long cable for the controllers?
Yeah.
There were people who were making wireless adapters, there were people making longer controllers, more comfortable controllers, less traditional ones, and all that stuff is going to be basically moot, because they use that weird proprietary hook or connector. So it's not like you can just use that with something else.
I'm not kidding. My friend bought this as an investment. I should ask him what he made off of it. But.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the average price now is about $400.
Yeah, $400. It jumped yesterday. It was pretty nuts.
Yeah, and it's kind of depressing. Well, I know what I'm going to do. I'm looking into building a pie.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
One of my coworkers just finished his today, and it was, I think, he said all told it was about $120. And he can play, well, I won't say what he can play because, we respect the rule of law here, but let's just say that it is capable of doing a hell of a lot more than the NES Classic.
Well, that was what I was literally something I was going to suggest today is the amount of money that you could pay to get one on average is $350 to $400. You can just build yourself the most dank emulator and then probably 3D print it and make something that looks exactly the same, more accessibility.
Oh no, he doesn't even need to 3D print it. He spent another $30 and got a shell from an NES Classic on
exactly
Amazon. So it actually looks like one even. The only difference being it doesn't have the front ports because his controllers are Bluetooth.
Oh jeez.
Yeah,
that's so awesome. But that's exactly the point I'm trying to make. For a fraction of the cost, you could get something that's more flexible, more accessible, and can play more or less whatever you want.
Exactly. Anyways, though, we are pretty much out of time here, unfortunately, so we're going to have to close for the day. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, though. As I'm sure you can tell, this has been procedurally generated. We hope you've enjoyed listening. Please be sure to check us out on Libsyn and iTunes, where you can leave a rating or review. You can also follow us on Twitter at PG_show, or if you prefer to watch the show on YouTube, you can always check it out on my channel on YouTube, lesser.noob, that's N00B, or just search Henry Plays. Also, just wanted to mention that we are going to be starting to upload a couple of my videos a week to the Zone Coverage website. So if you guys have not checked that out, be sure to go there if you are, browsing anyways for the podcast. Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening, and as always, game on.